Title: The Whispering House. My name is Eli Carter. I'm 32 years old and work in a downtown records office. Life, for the most part, was boring and safe. That is, until last month, when I received a letter I was never meant to read. It came in a yellowed envelope, brittle at the corners, sealed with red wax that cracked the moment I touched it. The handwriting was thin and jagged. My full name was written on the front, not just Eli, but Elijah Carter, a name only one person ever used, my Uncle Raymond. Uncle Raymond died 23 years ago, or at least that's what I was told. I never really knew him. He vanished from our family when I was 8. My mother told me he died in a car accident, but never showed me a grave. Never spoke of him again. Now, suddenly, a letter from him appears in my mailbox. The letter said, "Elijah, if you're reading this, it means I'm truly gone this time. You're the only one I trust. The house is now yours. Don't let it sit too long. It remembers and it's hungry. Ah." Attached was a deed. I stared at it for hours. I even called a lawyer to confirm. It was real. Whistler House, tucked deep in the woods outside Marwick, a town I hadn't visited since I was a kid, was now in my name. I should have ignored it, burned it. But something inside me stirred. Curiosity? Nostalgia? Or maybe it was just the strange dream I had that night, a house creaking, a voice whispering, "Come home." So I packed a bag and took 2 weeks off work. Told my boss I had family matters to settle. I didn't know what I was walking into. Marwick hadn't changed much, a tiny dot on the map with 1 gas station, 2 diners and too many trees. Everything smelled like pine and wet earth. I stopped at Betty's Diner, same one we used to eat at when I was a kid. The waitress, maybe 60, maybe 80, squinted at me. "You ain't from around here, are ya?" "I used to be," I said. "Elijah Carter, Raymond Carter's nephew." She froze, coffee pot in hand. "That house still standing?" she asked, almost in a whisper. "I guess. It's mine now." "Don't go in there alone," she said flatly. "That place, it don't like to be quiet." I laughed awkwardly. She didn't. The road to the house was exactly how I remembered, long, winding and lined with trees so thick they blocked the sky. I passed the crumbled stone gate, ivy-covered. The nameplate, Whistler House, still barely visible. I parked in front of the old porch. The house looked like it had grown out of the woods, windows shuttered, roof sagging, but it stood. I walked up the steps, each creak under my foot echoed like a breath. The key fit the lock perfectly. When I opened the door, I swear the house exhaled. A gust of air brushed my face, warm and smelling faintly of ash and something sweet like rotting fruit. Inside, everything was covered in white sheets, furniture, paintings, even the chandelier. Then I heard it, a whisper. So soft I couldn't make out the words. I froze, held my breath. Nothing, I shook my head. "Old wood," I muttered, but deep down I knew what I heard, and it wasn't the house settling. I spent the first night sleeping in the back seat of my car. I know how that sounds. Grown man, scared of an empty house. But something about Whistler House felt watchful. Like I wasn't the only one breathing in those rooms. Morning brought a grey, soupy light. Mist clung to the grass like it was afraid to let go. I unlocked the front door again, stepping over that invisible line between outside and something else entirely. I started pulling down the white sheets. Dust swirled into the air with every movement. The furniture underneath was older than I remembered. Victorian, dark oak, ornate legs, velvet cushions faded by time. And then I uncovered the portrait. It hung in the hallway just past the stairs. The man in the painting wore a black coat, high collar, silver chain watch, and a serious, unsmiling expression. But it wasn't just the painting's age that made it unsettling. It was his eyes. They weren't looking forward, like most portraits. They looked left, toward the stairway. I stepped closer. A plaque read, "Raymond Elias Carter, 1962. No death year, just a question mark. I don't know why, but I reached up and turned the portrait slightly, just a small tilt to center it. The moment I did, the whisper returned, clearer this time. "You're not alone, Eli." I whipped around. No one. My skin went cold. I checked every room on the ground floor, kitchen, dining room, study, all empty, all still. But the whisper had sounded like it was inside my ear. I grabbed a flashlight and decided to check the basement. Bad idea, I know, but that's where the house wanted me to go. I could feel it, like it was pulling at my chest. The basement door was heavier than it looked. Rusted hinges groaned as it opened. The air down there smelled like mildew, rust, and something wet. I stepped onto the stairs and heard the door click shut behind me. The flashlight's beam cut through the basement's thick shadows, stone walls, low ceiling, and silence, except for the occasional drip of water and the distant ticking of a clock. The room at the bottom was larger than expected. Too large, like it extended under the entire house. Tools hung from hooks on the walls, old, rusted blades, gardening tools, a hand drill. Not strange for a basement, except each one was spotless. No dust, no cobwebs. Then I saw the circle. It was drawn on the concrete floor in what looked like chalk. Inside the circle were symbols, strange ones, nothing I recognized, and in the center a small black rocking chair. It began to rock. No wind, no vibration, nothing touched it. But it moved, slowly, forward and back, creaking softly. And then I heard it. The whisper again, but layered, like many voices whispering at once from different mouths, different ages. "Elijah, Elijah!" He opened the door. "Must listen. Now you must listen." I turned around and ran. Up the stairs, slammed into the basement door. It was locked. I banged on it, shouting. Something moved behind me. The voices rose. "Elijah, we're still here." I turned slowly. The rocking chair had stopped, but in its place stood a figure, pale, thin, dressed in black. He raised a finger to his lips. "Shh." The door burst open behind me. I fell through it, scrambled to my feet and slammed it shut. I didn't open that door again for 3 days. I didn't leave the house, not really. I stayed on the main floor, moving only between the living room and the kitchen. I kept the lights on at all times, even in the daytime. I unplugged the basement door with a chair jammed beneath the knob. Still the whispers came. They didn't always say my name. Sometimes they just chanted, soft and slow, like prayers in a language I couldn't understand. At night, they'd drift in through the vents, sometimes under the floorboards. One night, they came from inside the walls. On the 3rd day, the doorbell rang. I jumped, heart racing. I hadn't seen another person since I arrived. At the door stood a woman, mid-30s, copper hair in a tight braid, grey hoodie, and jeans worn at the knees. "Elijah Carter?" she asked. I nodded. "I'm Marla Jennings. I used to live here, a long time ago." She hesitated. "I heard someone finally inherited it. Thought you might need company." I let her in, more out of stunned confusion than trust. We sat in the dusty living room. She didn't seem scared, just familiar with the place. "You know about the house," I said, not a question. She nodded. "It doesn't like silence. You've noticed that by now." I looked at her. The whispers. What do they want? Marla took a deep breath. "It's not about what they want. It's about what the house wants. This place, it remembers pain, holds on to it, whispers it back. You don't get to live here. You survive here." She pulled something from her backpack, a small leather-bound book. "My brother disappeared in this house, 1997. We were playing hide and seek. He went into the basement." Her voice cracked. "Never came back up." I stared at her. She opened the book. Old photos, clippings. A missing child notice, Peter Jennings, age 9. Last seen at Whistler House. "You think he's still in the house?" "I know he is," she said. "The house never lets go." The wind howled outside, and the portrait in the hallway fell to the floor, glass shattering. Marla and I rushed to the hallway. The portrait of Raymond Carter, my uncle, lay face down on the wooden floor. The frame cracked, glass in shards. I picked it up carefully, but something caught my eye behind it. A faint line, a seam in the wall, almost invisible. "A hidden door," Marla whispered. Together, we felt along the edges until we found a latch. It clicked, and a section of the wall popped open with a dry groan. A narrow hallway, barely wide enough for a person, stretched into darkness. A stale, sour smell wafted out like rot and damp clothes. "We don't have to go in," I said, but Marla was already walking. The flashlight's beam flickered as we moved deeper. The hallway twisted sharply, then opened into a small room. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with old journals, cassette tapes, boxes of Polaroids. In the center, a wooden table. On it, dozens of black and white photographs. Each one showed the same thing, the house, different decades, different people standing out front, some smiling, some grim, and one recurring figure always in the background. A tall man in black, watching, sometimes half hidden behind a tree, sometimes standing in a window. "He's always there," Marla said, pointing. "In one photo I saw my mother, barely 20, holding a baby, me, and in the upstairs window of the house, the man in black, watching. I felt a chill crawl up my back. Then the whisper came again, this time from the hallway behind us. Elijah, Marla, come downstairs." The basement door was open, and the light inside had turned on by itself. Marla grabbed my wrist before I could move. "We shouldn't," she said. Her voice trembled, the first crack in her calm. "But it knows we're here," I whispered. It opened the door. "If we don't go down now, it might come up." We stood there, frozen by the sound of something moving in the basement. Not footsteps, dragging, like something heavy was being pulled across the floor. I swallowed hard, clicked on the flashlight, and led the way down. The light in the basement was swinging slowly, back and forth, casting long shadows that danced against the stone walls. The chalk circle was still there. The symbols looked fresher now, like someone had redrawn them. The rocking chair was gone, and in its place stood a mirror. An old, tall mirror, its surface foggy, the frame covered in scratches. It hadn't been there before. I was sure of it. Marla stayed at the top of the stairs. "Eli," she whispered, "do you see something in the reflection?" I stepped closer. Yes, something moved inside the mirror, but it wasn't copying my actions. It stood behind me, a tall, pale figure, thin hands, hollow eyes. And then it spoke, but not with lips, not from the mirror. It spoke inside my mind. "The house remembers you, Elijah. You were never meant to leave." I staggered back. Marla screamed. I spun around and saw something crawling from the corner of the room, a child's body, twisted, missing an arm. Its head lolled to the side, eyes sunken and black. It whispered, "Marla, it hurts." She gasped. "Peter?" But the thing didn't answer. It screamed. The flashlight flickered, then died, and everything went dark. I don't remember running back upstairs. I remember the screaming, Marla's voice fading into the darkness, and something grabbing my ankle as I fled, nails cold and sharp. But I kicked free. I slammed the basement door shut and locked it again. Then silence. Dead, pressing silence. I called her name. No answer. I stood there for 10 minutes, heart hammering, trying to decide if I should go back. That's when the lights upstairs turned off, one by one. I grabbed a match from the kitchen and lit the old iron candle holder I'd found earlier. Its flickering glow revealed footprints on the floor, small, wet, leading toward the upstairs hallway. I followed them. Each step groaned beneath me. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched left and right. The footprints turned left, toward a door that I remembered had been locked the first night. Now it stood open. Inside was a small nursery, wallpaper peeling, a wooden crib, a mobile still spinning slowly, though no wind moved it. But what chilled me most were the candles. Dozens of them, lit, flickering, arranged in a perfect circle around the crib. Inside the crib was a doll, but not like any I'd seen before. Its face was covered in stitches, its hands tied with red thread, and its mouth was sewn shut. A voice whispered from behind me, "Do you remember, Eli? You cried in this room." I turned, but no one was there. I looked at the doll again. It was sitting up now, and the red thread around its mouth was unraveling. The thread slid from the doll's mouth like a snake, slowly, wetly. I took a step back. The candle flames bent inward, as if something was inhaling from the center of the room. Then the doll's mouth opened, and it spoke, in a voice that wasn't human. "You cried here, Eli, and we fed. You don't remember, but the house does." I turned and ran, nearly tripping over the rug. The hallway pulsed behind me, walls shifting subtly, breathing like lungs too large for their ribs. Back in the living room, I fumbled for my phone. No signal, no Wi-Fi. Even the clock on the wall had stopped. And the basement door? It was open again. At first, I couldn't move. Then I realized the whisper had changed. It wasn't threatening, it was pleading. "Eli, help! Help me!" "Marla," I grabbed the flashlight and crept down once more. The mirror was still there, but now it reflected me standing in a different room. Not the basement. Not any room in the house I'd seen. It showed a brick chamber, and Marla, sitting in a chair, her mouth covered with red thread, eyes wide, tears streaming. Behind her stood Raymond, or what used to be him, paler than marble, eyes black as oil, and that whispery voice, "She will stay, like the others, unless you take her place." The flashlight flickered. I looked away from the mirror and saw that the chalk circle was glowing, symbols spinning, alive. The house had opened a door to something deeper. It was time to go down further. The spinning symbols on the floor pulled my vision. I felt dizzy, like standing at the top of a great well. Then, just like that, I was falling, but not falling in space, falling through thought. I landed on cold stone. The air smelled like burnt hair and roses. I looked up. No ceiling, just endless black. The walls were covered in drawings, dozens, hundreds, etched in with nails or knives, scenes of people screaming, kneeling, being stitched together with red thread. In the center of the room, Marla sat in a wooden chair, her eyes fluttered open. Her voice came softly. "They don't live here. Eli, they just whisper. The house speaks for them. They used to be people, but now they're part of it." I ran to her, untied the red thread over her mouth. She coughed and gasped. "The house feeds on grief, pain. We are echoes, Eli. It chose you because you're a key." "A key to what?" I asked. "To remembering." The walls behind her began to shift, one carving lit up, glowing faintly. A boy, maybe 8 years old, sitting in a high chair, crying. Me, and a man standing behind me. Uncle Raymond. His hands held something red. It wasn't a blanket, it was thread. The whisper returned. "You cried first, Eli. You let us in. Finish what you started." The light snapped out, and then I remembered. Everything. When I was 5, I spent 2 weeks at Whistler House. My mother had to leave for surgery. Uncle Raymond was the only family nearby. I'd always remembered those days as blurry. Just long hallways, cold meals, and the smell of something burning. But now it was coming back. At night, Raymond would take me down to the basement. He said it was a game. He drew circles and told me to sit inside them. Told me to be very quiet. If I made a sound, the others might not like me. Once I cried. Just once. That's when I first heard the whispers. And when I looked at the mirror again, I didn't see Marla or myself anymore. I saw him. Raymond, alive in the mirror's world. Older, somehow, but untouched by time. He stared at me with hollow patience like I was the missing piece in a puzzle he'd been working on for years. "You cried," his voice echoing across space. "You opened the door. That made you ours." I turned away. Marla was beside me, hands trembling. "We have to destroy the mirror," she whispered. "It's the anchor. It keeps the house remembering." I nodded. Together we lifted it. Heavy. Too heavy for glass. The whispers rose in fury. "Stop! Stop! He belongs." I hurled the mirror onto the stone floor. It cracked. Not shattered, cracked like it didn't want to break. A blast of wind slammed into us. Screams rose from the walls themselves. Dozens. Hundreds. Voices twisted in agony. But the surface of the mirror split again, and something crawled out. It wasn't Raymond. It wasn't anything human. It crawled like a spider, but its limbs were too long, joints bent backward, its fingers dragging behind it like broken bones. Its face was a blur, sometimes mine, sometimes Raymond's, sometimes something else entirely. And it whispered in my voice, "Don't leave me again. You opened the door, remember? You let them in." Marla screamed. I grabbed a rusted pipe from the ground and swung. The creature shrieked, a sound like a radio detuned to every station of hell. Its skin split open, and inside were faces, pressed together, some sobbing, some laughing, some just watching. "Run!" I shouted. Marla and I sprinted for the stairs. The spiral room blurred around us, warping and folding. We were deep in the house's memory now, and it wasn't letting go. The stairs stretched longer, step after step. We ran anyway. At the top, the basement door slammed shut before we reached it. The thing behind us laughed in Raymond's voice. "You don't get out. You are the house." I rammed the door. Once, twice. It broke open. Light flooded in. But it wasn't daylight. It was fire. The living room was burning. The flames licked the ceiling, dancing like they were alive, like they were watching. Smoke coiled through the halls, slow and oily, creeping like fingers. Marla coughed beside me, covering her mouth. "How did it catch fire?" "It didn't," I said, my voice hoarse. "It wanted this. It's burning itself." But the house wasn't panicking. It wasn't groaning or collapsing. It was calm, like it had expected this. Like it had done this before. We pushed through the thick air, every step a struggle. The heat made the wallpaper peel like old skin. Portraits melted. The eyes in them seemed to shift as we passed. We reached the front door. I threw it open and found the porch gone. In its place was blackness. Not night. Not fog. Just nothing. Like the world outside had been erased. "We're still inside its memory," Marla whispered. "It won't let us out until we finish the story." The whispers returned, louder now. "The end is below." The fire behind us whooshed higher. We had no choice. We turned back, toward the basement, toward the spiral, toward whatever the house wanted us to remember. Back through the ruined basement. The mirror shards were gone. The spiral glowed again, and this time it was pulling us. We stepped into it, no longer falling but sinking, like being swallowed by ink. When we opened our eyes, we were no longer in any part of the house I knew. A massive chamber stretched in every direction, stone, cold. In the center, a pit. At its edge, a great black eye stared upward, not moving, just watching. Around the pit stood dozens of wooden chairs, each one occupied by figures with no mouths. Their eyes bulged, they twitched, but they made no sound. "The house remembers every scream it silenced," Marla murmured. Then we saw him again, Raymond, or what he had become. He stood at the edge of the pit, arms outstretched. "You came back, Elijah. Good. Now you finish what I began." "I'm not finishing anything." He turned, and beneath his face, dozens of mouths opened in his chest. They spoke in unison. "You are the final memory. Once you remember it all, we are free." The floor split. Marla screamed. The pit opened wider, and something rose from it. From the pit came something vast, not a creature in any way we understand, but a presence, dragging itself into view. It was made of stitched flesh and forgotten faces, rows of arms, mouths gasping silently, skin rippling like liquid shadows, a choir of souls trapped beneath one shape, writhing together like memories no one wanted to remember. Marla fell to her knees beside me. "It's all the ones the house took," she whispered. "This is the core, the first scream, the first pain." Raymond's voice boomed, dozens of echoes speaking at once. "When pain is buried, it festers. When grief is silenced, it becomes a shape. This house is not haunted, it's infected." I took a step forward, feeling my childhood fear slam against my chest. I remembered. Not just the chalk circle, not just the mirror. I remembered hearing a scream from beneath the floor even then. My 5-year-old self had covered my ears, and when I did, I saw my uncle smile. He'd been feeding the house, and my silence helped him. Marla stood, her voice steady. "If remembering is what it wants, maybe that's how we break it. Remember all of it," the pit hissed, "or you'll feed us forever." We clasped hands and looked into the pit together, and the house showed us everything. The chamber melted into memory, not mine, the house's. We were now inside a vision, clearer than dream, sharper than waking. Year 1901. The Whistler house stood new, freshly painted, but already it had secrets. A woman sobbed in a rocking chair, young, pale, clutching a bundle too still to be alive. Her husband stood over her, holding a needle and thread. "We can fix it," he whispered. "We can keep him." He carried the child's body to the basement, and that's when the whispers began. It wasn't a ghost, it was pain, so deep it tore a hole in the fabric of the place. That was the origin, the first grief, the first echo. From that moment on, the house didn't need the family. It needed the feeling. Every tenant after them fed into it, every scream silenced, every sorrow buried. Raymond had only inherited what the house already was. I saw him as a boy, playing in the attic, hearing the whispers. I saw me sitting in the chalk circle. I saw every single person the house had ever devoured. Not killed, kept, and then the vision cracked. The black eye returned. "You see now, to end the house you must undo the memory." Marla clutched my arm. "We have to burn the first pain. Not this version of the house, the beginning. But how do you burn something that's already memory?" That's when the floor collapsed beneath us, and we were falling again. We landed hard, not on stone this time, but on soft, muddy earth. Rain fell around us, cold, thick. It wasn't real rain, it felt more like tears. We stood in a garden behind the house, except not the house we knew. This was older, simpler. No scorch marks, no rot, just a peaceful-looking cottage under grey skies. It was the Whistler house before everything went wrong. We walked up to the back window, peering in. Inside, the same woman from the memory, the mother, rocked in her chair, humming a lullaby. But now the bundle in her arms moved. A baby, pale, sickly, crying, her face twisted in fear. Then we saw it again, the man, Raymond's great-grandfather. He didn't look evil, just desperate. He whispered, "If it cries too long, the thing will come back." Marla gasped. "They knew what they started," she said. "They didn't summon it by accident, they used it." The infant screamed louder, a sound so sharp the garden seemed to tremble. And then, just behind the crib, something shifted, a shadow, the house's first whisper. We watched the man draw a red thread through a needle. He approached the child. Marla turned away. I didn't. The mother cried silently as the thread sealed the baby's lips. The crying stopped. The whispering deepened. That was the moment the house changed forever. The garden twisted. We were inside again, but not in memory. back in the burning present. Marla clutched her head. I remember everything, she said, and it's hurting me. The house was punishing us for seeing too much. Raymond's voice echoed again, closer, clearer. You could end it, you could undo the wound, but pain doesn't vanish, it just moves. He stepped out of the fire, untouched by flame. Let it stay here, he said. Let the house keep it. Let us live in peace. I shook my head. No, that baby didn't deserve silence. None of them did. And what about you? He hissed. You left. You forgot. And now you want redemption? No, you don't get to burn it all down. The black eye appeared again, floating above the staircase, dripping shadows. Marla looked at me. If we go back to that moment, she said, to the thread, to the very first stitch, we might be able to unmake the whisper. But how? She held up something small. It was the doll, the stitched one from the nursery. But now its mouth was open, no thread, just silence. This doll is the copy, she said. We burn this, not the house. We erase the memory, not the structure. The whispers roared in anger. The flames turned blue. I lit the doll. And as it burned, we heard the house scream. Not like a monster, like a child. As the doll burned, the blue flames hissed and bent inward like wind being sucked through a keyhole. Then, silence. Not peace, not calm, just absence. The whispers were gone. The fire vanished in an instant, as if someone flipped a switch. The walls stopped breathing. The floors stopped shifting. It was like the house exhaled. We stood in the center of the living room. Everything was back in place, clean, undamaged, no smoke, no scorch marks. Even the portraits had returned. But now they were empty, faces gone, only outlines left. Marla looked at me. Is it over? I couldn't speak. I walked to the front door and opened it. Outside the world was normal. Morning sun, cool wind, birds. We stepped out. It felt wrong to be in fresh air, to feel free. Behind us, the Whistler house stood still and silent, but no longer watching. It's been 3 months since we escaped. I say escaped, but that's not quite it. We weren't prisoners. We were reminders. The house used us because it was dying and didn't want to go quietly. Marla moved back to the city. We talk sometimes, but never about Whistler House. There's nothing left to say. I stayed in town. I started seeing a therapist. Sometimes I ask if memories can be infectious. If houses can trap feelings like jars trap fireflies. She doesn't have an answer. The house still stands. People pass it by and barely notice. It's been sold again. A family moved in last week. 2 kids, a baby. I walk by sometimes, just to look. The curtains are open now. No shadows at the window, no whispers behind the glass. But last night, just as I turned the corner, I thought I heard something. Just faintly. A lullaby. A hum. I stopped, heart pounding. Then I heard the softest sound imaginable, a baby crying, and then silence.